everybody, and welcome to a special edition of Tunnel Vision, a show brought to you by USCFootball.com. I'm your host, Keely, joined alongside Ryan Abraham, and a special guest today in studio, Fox Sports' Colin Cowherd. Colin, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So we're going to be talking all things USC football. I know Colin has some hot takes. That's what everyone's here for. We'll definitely get your opinion on USC football. And your tweet. You tweeted out something pretty spicy on Saturday after USC's loss to Utah. We'll talk about what is next for USC. And, of course, we will take your questions. We'll ask Colin what you guys have to say. We are on Periscope, YouTube, and Facebook Live, so make sure you put your questions in there. We'll get to them soon. First off, Colin, general thoughts about the state of USC football right now. What are you feeling?
Well, I've been kind of cynical of the staff. Everything that I thought would happen has happened. I don't think when Clay Helton took the job, he was in a power position. I don't think people in the coaching industry thought he was quite ready for it. They saw him as a coordinator. When he was hired by Lane Kiffin, I think he was a quarterback coach initially at Western.
I think did he come from Memphis? I forget where he was at the time.
He was a quarterback coach. Yeah. He wasn't even a position coach. It was just quarterback coach and coordinator. And I don't think he's ever truly in the coaching fraternity. And this is very difficult to build a great staff when the word among coaches is, I'm not sure how long it's going to last. It's much easier when Harbaugh goes to Michigan for a 6-7 year deal, making $7 million a year. He's empowered. So if he calls Don Brown, Jed Fish, or really good people, he can get them. And so I think the staff's always been cobbled together. It's not a great staff. My coaching contacts in the Pac-12 have for several years been telling me, they're doing it on talent. And so I always had questions about it. I liked a lot of people on the staff, but what has happened is they're just outmatched. Bob Davie can win at New Mexico. He's outmatched in a Big Five or at Notre Dame. You see this a lot in coaching, where when a coach gets to a certain level, he meets his match. If you put Clay Helton in the Big West, he wouldn't get exposed. But when you put him up against Tom Herman and Urban Meyer and Whittingham and Brian Kelly, and you put him up against Nick Saban, he gets outclassed. You can see 8 minutes into the game, you're like, they're just not ready to play. Now, I think USC, he did have a great win over Chris Peterson on the road.
That was a big one.
That was the best win of his career. But the question remains, how much of that's Darnold, how much of the staff? And there have been moments, John Baxter's trick play against UCLA. Yeah. There have been moments, the Washington win. They had a Stanford win early last year. But I think the staff has been exposed. It's not a premier Big Five power conference staff. I think they've had people, Dalen McCullough, the running back coach, excellent, 1 year off to the NFL. But by and large, they cannot land elite coordinators and elite people. You have a defensive coordinator who won't recruit. Would Nick Saban allow that? I think there are, Clay didn't come in from a power position, has not been able to assemble the staff, which is really an elite staff, and this is what you have.
Do you feel like the staff there's limitations as far as the USC administration goes, or is it that Clay Helton doesn't want to bring in?
It's going to be really interesting. Pat Hayden played, and so did Lynn Swann. And one of the complaints from Lane Kiffin and Sark on Pat Hayden was he was a coach. He thought he was still coaching.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the knocks on Lynn Swann is he doesn't trust Clay, and he's played football at a high level, so sees himself sort of as a football expert.
Yeah.
Oklahoma's athletic director, Clemson's athletic director, Alabama's athletic director let the coaches coach. So will Lynn Swann hire somebody and just let him coach?
Yeah.
Or is he going to be over his shoulder? So premier coaches are not going to let you do that. They're just not. Harbaugh's not going to let you be in film rooms and be on the sidelines, second guessing. I'm not going to allow that. So if you want to get a premier coach, Bob Stoops is not going to allow that.
Yeah. If you hire an alpha guy, you have to let them do their thing. The reason they're an alpha is because they do it their way, not because they want to fit into a USC way. And I feel like that's probably what went wrong when the USC looked at Chris Peterson. Like, they want Chris Peterson to come down, but do it our way instead of your way.
Oh, I know. That's exactly what happened. Chris said, I want boom, 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 boom. And USC said, we'll give you boom, boom, but not boom, 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 boom. And Chris Peterson, by the way, with 3-star talent, is winning a lot more games. I mean, Washington's talent, just watch the games. They don't look like Notre Dame. They don't look like Clemson. They don't look like Ohio State. They don't look like LSU. Chris Peterson is an excellent talent evaluator, rigid, strict, hires who he wants from secretary on up, and USC wouldn't allow it.
Just as a reminder, get your questions in for Colin.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be asking him them later. So, Colin, you are now athletic director Lynn Swan. That's your job right now. What are you doing right now?
I know who I'd hire. So the world has changed. So everybody's going to go big game hunting. But let me ask you, did anybody know Sean McVay before Sean McVay got hired? Did anybody know Matt Nagy? Did anybody know Sean Payton? Did anybody know these guys? Did anybody know Lincoln Riley? Nope. The game has changed. The rules now are so offensively leaning. I love Bob Stoops. You can't hire a 57-year-old defensive coach. I don't want to hear how great Saban is or Belichick. Those are outliers.
Yeah.
Those are the world's best coaches. Even those coaches have young, smart, offensive guys, right, running their offense. So look at the way the world's changed. Tom Herman turned it around. Lincoln Riley, home run. What's happening? Rams, Bears, Chiefs. By the way, Andy Reid's had all these young, smart guys. So I would look to an offensive guy, and I wouldn't look to an old offensive guy. I'd go 45 years and younger. I would look to a guy that's got some NFL expertise and also understands the college game. And I think the choice is Jedd Fisch.
Interesting.
He
Former
was,
UCLA offensive coordinator.
first of all, Belichick is the first guy on his resume, and Pete Carroll's second. NFL guys like him a lot. The Rams hired him. He is, next to Sean McVay, he's the voice in that offensive machinery. So McVay trusted him. What does that tell you? Les Snead trusted him. Belichick likes him. Pete Carroll. So he's got NFL respect. Okay, that shows you he's a bright guy. I know Jedd, he's a very bright guy. Secondly, when Jim Mora got fired, go back and look at the numbers of the offense. UCLA's offense was fine. They were doing it with kind of marginal offensive guys. They were like number 3 in the country. Okay, and remember this. Mora and Rosen were getting so much glare. Jedd Fisch was running the offense.
Yeah.
And he knows JT. He knows all these offensive kids. He recruited all of them. So he knows Southern California. I think I know who he would hire as a defensive coach, but I'm not going to say it because I don't want to. This is a currently hired, well-compensated person in the world of football. But nobody knew who McVay was. Nobody knew who Nagy was. Nobody knew Lincoln Riley. Nobody knew Josh McDaniels. All these young whizzes, you didn't know who they were. So everybody's telling me, go get Bob Stoops. I love Bob. I love Bob. He's 58, and he's a defensive guy. The world, by the way, Lane Kiffin goes to FAU. I wouldn't hire Kiffin, but overnight, 3 wins to 10.
Yeah.
Say what you want about Kiffin. In the last 3 years, we have had like cultural, legislative rule changes in football. You can't hire defensive coaches. And again, everybody goes, well, what about Belichick? He's the world's best coach ever. What about Saban? He's got this puppy rolling. But Saban, to his credit, constantly looking for the next smart offensive guy. He had McElwain. He had Nussmeier. He had Kiffin. He looked at Sark. He's kept his ear to the ground on smart offensive guys.
I think the issue with that would be USC's kind of gone that way. They hired Kiffin. They hired Sark. They hired like the young
and they
offensive gurus.
They weren't, in my opinion, socially ready for the job.
Yeah.
Lane wasn't mature enough. Sark wasn't socially ready for it. Jedd's married. Jedd's got kids. Jedd's lived in the area. Jedd's a grown-up. Okay? Yeah. Jedd's not a social animal. Those guys weren't socially ready for it. Okay? And again, it won't be a big flashy name, but if you're asking me what I would do, everybody said Kyle Whittingham. He's a defensive guy. And by the way, you're not getting him. Okay? He's got a 10-year post-football deal guaranteed. He's got a pension lined up in that state. You're not getting him. He's out. He's not coming here.
Yeah.
See, as far as your take goes, the question becomes now, would the USC's administration want to do that?
Well, it's not a huge name. So Lynn Swan is still the star of the athletic department.
Yeah.
True. But they didn't want to give Chris Peterson what he wanted. Would they?
But Chris Peterson was more dogmatic. I think Jedd Fisch would be more amenable, to letting Swanee hang around the program. I think, Jedd's an easygoing guy. But, listen, I will tell you this, is that, it's not official that Clay Helton's gone. So all of this.
Right, that's what I mean, we're talking, like, I think that every 2 years we end up having these conversations.
But I mean, listen, I'm in a position now where I'm not going to BS people. We all know it's not like you're losing to Utah. It's that you got 10 first downs and they got 27. I mean, these games aren't close. The Notre Dame game's not close. The Texas game's not close.
Yeah.
Post Sam Bradford, when you meet top coaches, they're blowing USC out. These are not. And remember, this was an easy transition for Clay Helton. Okay, he wasn't Rich Rod going to Michigan.
Right.
I'm going to change the offense. He was in the program.
It was the exact same, yeah.
It was like, this is an easy one. This should have taken 8 games.
Yeah.
This was not this was not Tom Herman. Okay, Tom Herman's like 15 games in and they're ready to go. 18 games in. So this has never worked. I don't feel guilty talking about this. I don't cover USC. I'm projecting. But let's move on. We know it's not working. Notre Dame's a bad matchup. UCLA, frankly, could be a bad matchup. I think Cal will be an interesting matchup.
Yeah. It's hard because Clay Helton's one of the nicest guys you'd ever want to meet, and it's a guy you want to root for.
Of course.
You feel like he's been kind of stubborn as far as like not bringing in super talented coaches and not changing.
I don't think is it stubborn, or remember, the coaches the reason Saban couldn't go get anybody is because everybody knows all you have to do is appeal to Saban.
Yeah.
Okay. The bottom line is the reason coaches want long, big contracts is they can go get the best defensive coordinators and the best. This staff has been guys that get fired, guys from Western Kentucky. This is not John Baxter got run out of Michigan. Okay, I'll take him.
Yeah.
Well, Baxter's bounced around college football.
Tim Drevno gets run out of Michigan.
I mean, Clancy's been back. Clancy won't recruit. It's like most staffs are not going to allow their defensive coordinator. I'm not going to recruit. USC doesn't have the choice. I mean, college football is, if you win February, you mostly, unless you're a moron, win your games. I mean, February 3 is the most important day in college football. It's not September. Nick wins February.
Yeah.
It makes the season much easier.
Yeah.
I thought there was some encouragement a couple of years ago when we had I think you came into my studio the same day Dylan McCullough came in. We had you each on a podcast, and that was a great hire. Like, to me, he didn't know anything about USC. He was at Indiana putting guys in the NFL and recruiting his butt. Like, that was like the perfect hire, but that was one thing. And then once he leaves, you don't go back and do that again. So I felt like Clay Helton saw, hey, this is what I should do. This is a guy that would love to come to USC. You get him in. He's not someone that just, that he's got a great resume, and he did really well. But they haven't really done that outside of him.
Yeah, I mean, listen, when Clay got hired, there was so much chaos at USC. I understood what they were doing. And a lot of us were like, well, let's see how it goes. I was one of those. I liked him. Let's see how it goes. And then Darnold develops, and you're like, this is kind of interesting. But when they lost to Alabama, I was like, oh, they're not close.
Yeah.
Because, by the way, I'd seen Colorado State give Alabama a game.
Yeah.
The Alabama game was like, okay, this staff's not good enough. And then you see the Brian Kelly and the Urban Meyer. But it's one of those things where in any business, there's a tipping point. And when you watch the Alabama game, you're like, wow, they're 100 miles from competing.
Yeah.
You're watching Ole Miss go toe-to-toe. You're watching A&M go toe-to-toe. You're watching second-tier programs with Alabama, giving them a fight for an hour and a half. I mean, that game was over fast. So, there's tipping points. And I understood the hiring of Clay, but he's never truly been empowered. And again, I think if you put Clay in the division with Tulsa, you put him in the Sun Belt, you could put him in Mountain West, and I don't think he would be. It's like Rocky Long. Rocky Long's a good coach. I think he'd get exposed in a major conference. But Rocky Long can win games at San Diego State.
Yeah.
And he can be competitive. And he's a good coach, but I don't think the personality, and I'm just throwing him out. There's Bob Davie. Bob Davie can go to New Mexico and win games, but to be a Power 5 historically relevant coach at a USC, an Ohio State, a Texas, it takes a great recruiter, a great speaker, an alpha, a little bit of a jerk. It takes all those.
Jorge wants to know if the USC head coaching position is still a top 5 job.
It's a top 10 job.
Oh, interesting. I would say top 5 still. You don't think it is because of that?
LeBron, Dodgers, Rams, Chargers. It's a lifestyle job. If you want to be the guy in the city, run Austin, it's not. Depends on what you want. It's a great lifestyle job.
Yeah.
But I would also say this. The downside, I've had this belief for years, the downside to the West Coast is it's easily the best place to live. No humidity in the summer. The diet's better. The mountain ranges, the beach, no winters. It's a better life. And it's a better life, so kids have options. And college football is just not that important.
Yeah.
And you can tell from the kids, the passion doesn't run as deep with the fans. It doesn't run as deep with the players. I mean, I've talked to coaches. You recruit a Southern kid, yes sir, no sir. You recruit a West Coast kid, he's looking at his phone. He's checking on the Lakers. He's checking. West Coast kids have more options. They got the mountains, they got the beach, they got a little more lettuce. They've had a lot of these kids out in California. Dad played pro football. They've got options. And a lot of pretty girls and a lot of fun things to do and a lot of pro teams. And LA's got 31 music venues.
Yeah.
So football doesn't define them. It's not do or die. And that's the downside. In the South, it's everything for the fans, it's everything for the players, it's everything for the families, and it runs so deep. It's so embedded in the culture. College football is just not that big out here.
I would say that, there's disadvantages being the, East Coast bias and all that stuff, but there's some advantages too that USC can kind of sleepwalk their way. They start off 1-3. Is there any other program to go win the Rose Bowl after that? Like, there's so many inherited advantages and it's not like if you're at LSU, you're driving like 500 miles to see a 5-star kid. Here, you can hit a golf ball and get a few of them.
The advantage is USC is easily the number one football brand in the conference.
Yeah.
As good as Alabama is, Auburn's a top 10 national program. LSU's top 5. Georgia's top 7. The competition is so fierce. So even in the Big Ten, it's so fierce.
You don't have that kind of competition
here. It's USC, Washington's all in, and Stanford depends on the coach.
Yeah.
I mean, by the way, Stanford wasn't in before Harbaugh.
No.
I mean, now they're in because they're rolling and they have a couple huge Silicon Valley boosters that love football. But Stanford's been, in my lifetime, 7-win program.
Yeah.
I know you were a big Sam Darnold fan. What have you seen from JT Daniels so far this season?
I like him. I think he's a risk taker. He's fearless. He's got a nice arm. A little bit of a gunslinger. Got a little Sam Darnold where sometimes you're like, JT, no, don't do that. But he's more than good enough to win a national title. You have the right coach. This is not a program. Now, their perimeter skill people, they're great. They have Jay Tuafele and Brandon Keely are really good interior linemen. But their pass rushers don't look like Clemson, and they don't look a lot like Nick Bosa. Yeah. They need a world-class 6'4", 270 pass rusher. Porter Gustin is not that guy. Got great abs, but he's not that guy. They are not as good and as deep on the defensive line as the top 7 programs in the country. They're just not. And I'm talking to NFL scouts. When Pete was here, the backups could make an NFL roster. Now the starters are borderline. Jay Tuafele is an NFL player. I think Brandon Keely could be an NFL player. It stops.
Gotcha.
It stops there. That's what I'm being told from NFL people. Offensive line, left tackle Austin Jackson potentially is an NFL player. Rest of it doesn't look like NFL players. So whoever comes here, your first recruiting class, 12 of your players should be linemen. You got, you need a back. They're receiving. They need some receivers and backs, but the talent on the perimeter is fine.
Gotcha.
We have a question from Jenna who says, as part of a larger problem, what's your take on Larry Scott and his management of the Pac-12? What will it take to see him gone, and how does he benefit the Pac-12 at all?
Well, he's not that he lacks smarts. He's a real smart guy. Pac-12 is interesting. Again, it's harder. SEC is easier to run. I mean, you got leverage, you got power, you got passion. Big Ten's easier to run. Jim Delaney's great.
Yeah.
But again, in the Midwest footprint, Michigan, Ohio State, Wisconsin, those are big names. Out west, you got too many pro teams. I mean, it's a harder conference. It's hard to galvanize the masses. So you don't have very good TV deals. You don't get big numbers. So Fox and ESPN, aren't like in these bidding wars to get your basketball conference. So I think I don't think it's an easy conference to commission.
Maybe that's why Larry Scott's the highest paid commissioner, because it's not the easiest.
I think it's a tough job.
I think he's probably doing the worst of all the commissioners. But
He's had some. I mean, this obviously this officiating debacle.
Yeah.
Is really bad optics. Obviously, yeah.
Still nothing. We're right in 2 weeks. Still nothing's happened with that one. So we'll see.
So we have a lot of questions that say, we've heard who you want, but what do you think will actually happen in this season with Clay Helton and whatnot?
Will a change be made?
Well, I think they're going to lose. Listen, Ryan and I talk off the air. The games have all gone as I thought. So I thought they'd lose to Utah. And I thought the game with Colorado would be really close. And I thought they'd lose to Texas and they'd lose to Stanford. So I think they're going to lose badly to Notre Dame. I've watched Notre Dame play. They do not match up. I think UCLA could be interesting. I think Cal could be interesting. Listen, we are in a very crowded LA market. The Dodgers are drawing 4 million or close. The Lakers now with LeBron. Chip Kelly's around the corner. The Chargers and the Rams. The beach, the mountains. Like, you can keep going with Clay Helton. That's fine. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. But you're disappearing really fast in the market. And you just put all that money into that stadium, which you paid for. You want 60 in it, or do you want 75 jammed and sponsors lined up? Okay, because USC basketball is not driving revenue. USC baseball is not driving revenue. So at some point, do you want that Coliseum filled? Didn't USC pick up the bill on that thing?
Yeah, a lot of it's donor driven. So people, I think it's mostly paid for by people that were spending like $20 million to get the suites, because there was like all those suites and everything. But all those people want to stay, Again, it's not. USC football can win 6 games. It doesn't change my life. But if I ran USC, again, the thing, in life, how do you solve a problem? Admit you have it. My dad was an alcoholic. Until he admitted he was an alcoholic, he couldn't solve it. Yeah.
Okay? You got to admit you have a problem. If you still don't know about Clay Helton, that's your problem. I mean, if you're struggling to go, God, let's see, Alabama crushed us, Notre Dame crushed us, Texas crushed us, Stanford crushed us. You can blame the freshman quarterback. Go ahead, I don't care. I mean, again, but when I watch an offense that has no motion, that can pick up 10 first down, and it has 5-star players everywhere on it, you can blame whoever you want.
Yeah.
But I think it's fairly obvious from the coaches I talk to that DM me and text me during games, like, how in the hell is this not working? I think it's obvious we have a problem.
It's true. It's a subtle flex as well. Ryan, do you have any Periscope questions?
Man, there's a lot of people on Periscope. Thank you for. There's a lot of really bad coaching suggestions. There's the Urban Meyer one that comes up a lot.
Urban Meyer may leave after the season. That's a may. He's got some health issues again. But I don't think, again, there's some stuff going on with Urban's reputation right now. I don't think in Los Angeles would be a great fit.
Yeah.
We have some requests that you stop smacking the desk.
I'm very.
Do you do that in your show or anything?
I do.
Well, that's probably like a padded. They have a padded thing.
Yeah, they account for it.
Sorry.
Eddie wants to know: have you talked to Lynn Swann at all?
I've talked to him over the course of the year. He's not going to tell me who he's hiring.
Yeah.
So I tend to not ask questions I know the answer. So, Lynn's not going to tell me anything.
Yeah.
He's not going to tell me if he's unhappy with Clay, and he's not going to tell me who he's going to hire as a coach. So I have to go around him. I know the biggest agents. I know Jimmy Sexton. I know Trace Armstrong. If I need information, I can get it from them. By the way, Clay Helton and Jed Fish are both represented by Jimmy Sexton. So if I need an answer, I'll go to.
There you go.
Because Jimmy represents virtually everybody.
He does, yeah. Jacqueline wrote in, LA sports looks amazing, tough to compete unless you're an AP top 10 program. I
totally
think
agree.
that's fair. Right?
Totally agree. I think that you have to
I
consider.
mean, the Chargers, you had them in your top 5 of the.
Chargers are as good as the Rams. The Chargers are loaded. And when that new stadium comes, by the way, people are going to have a lot of choices in LA.
Yeah.
The greatest stadium in the world and 2 fantastic NFL teams, or, 8-win, eroding, uninteresting, no zip USC. And by the way, Chip Kelly down the road, that's not getting worse. That'll get
They'll
better.
figure it
I mean,
out.
I've watched them play 5 of their games. Every time I watch them they're getting a little bit better. And he's playing like 13 freshmen. So they're going to, all those kids come back next year.
So when was it over in your mind? Clay Helton wasn't the fit. Was it? You said the Alabama
game.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, oh, all right, this staff's not. They can't do this. So when you have all off season to prepare, and you can't gain yards with, it's like, okay.
It was weird because I think we had a fan base that was obviously after the 1-3 start in 2016. Most of the fans were against it, but once he won, the rest of the games and won the Rose Bowl, there were people on board. He won the Pac-12 championship last year. We were talking about this before in the other shows. It was still kind of split after that. There's a lot of people that were like, I saw Alabama. I know it's not going to be good. Once Sam Darnold's gone, just wait. But it went kind of quickly. When USC started off 1-2 this year, and the way they did it, scoring 3 points against Stanford, that's what looked bad.
Okay, here's the other thing. Pac-12's not very good right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Winning the Pac-12. Do you know the Pac-12 was, 0-7 in bowl games last year? Okay,
Or 1-8 or something, yeah.
1-8. Okay, don't look at the Pac-12.
Utah won.
When USC goes out of conference to face a big boy, they are suffocated.
Yeah.
Don't look at winning. Even Stanford this year isn't good. They have no push. Watch Washington play. It's a very limited. They have a non-NFL quarterback. They have one good running back. Their best player's a left tackle. He's out for the year with an injury. They got a couple good defensive linemen and a nice safety, but Washington doesn't pass the eyeball test.
Listen to Auburn, and they're a mediocre
if
SEC
you put
team this year.
Washington in the SEC, they're a 6-7 win program, maybe. So winning, I've never been like, oh my God, the Pac-12. When Pete was dominating the Pac-12, he would leave the conference and beat Auburn.
Yeah.
And beat Arkansas and beat Michigan. Every time USC leaves the conference last 3 years, they get their ears boxed. So don't fall in love with winning the Pac-12. Pac-12 right now is underfunded and weak.
True. I know you're a big recruiting nerd.
Yeah.
How do you think that this lackluster performances by USC affects recruiting in that sense?
Well, USC will flip a lot of players if they get the right coach. Again, this USC's brand sells.
Yeah.
I mean, Paul Hackett landed Carson Palmer and Troy Polamalu.
Yeah.
So USC's brand's fine.
There's a lot of recruiting, like, USC got a couple of decommitments recently and stuff. It's like, that's the one thing you don't really have to worry about. Like, you look at, like Colin was talking about, there's 4 and 5-star players all over the place.
Yes.
Like, you still, you're getting the talent. It's really just about, what are you doing with the talent? So I get that, if you have to make a change, I don't worry about that one recruiting class that might be a little off, I would say. But
Yeah, I mean, listen, if you were Clay Helton and you watch this, you'd be like crestfallen, right? Like, but the whole premise of this thing today is we all know it's over, right? Like, we all know it's over. Like, you have to admit is you're grabbing fool's gold here. It's not working. It's not that they lost to Utah. That was 27 first downs to 10.
yeah.
Yeah.
The score
way
wasn't
worse than
indicative.
yeah.
It was a complete blowout. By the way, Arizona came down to a play. Colorado was close. How many players does Colorado have USC recruits? 3? Arizona, 2? I mean, these games, USC has so much and the other problem I have with the program is, like, Darnold looks better with the Jets at times than he did with USC. In the NFL, I mean, there have been games this year where I'm like, wow, he looks, 2 weeks ago, he played Denver, tore him up.
Yeah.
Or was it Indianapolis?
Wait.
It may have been Indianapolis.
Yeah, he was in, yeah.
But he's had a couple of Detroit, and you're like, he didn't look like this at USC his last year. What does that tell you? What does that tell you?
It's hard because, we're going to go to practice later today and you ask Clay on questions and talk to him. And when you're there, you don't get the feeling from when you talk to coaches that there's a whole lot wrong. But hearing people like you when we're on the podcast, every question we get, there's literally like no support left for the coaching staff, which is just, it's kind of hard to, we're like in this place where we're doing our jobs, but
It's like
I don't know,
limbo.
it's weird, Keely, right? Like,
Yeah, because it's kind of like rearranging chairs on the Titanic. Like, what's the point?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you just get to points where, listen, I can I did this. So this year I haven't gone out to practice like once. And the reason I did it is because I didn't want to be a phony. I didn't want to go out there and glad hand. Like it was obviously not working. Yeah. So like when I don't go to USC practice, that's me saying, it's over. When I go to practice and support it, I'm like, I feel like there's something there. But, I entered this year, and I had told you off the air, I'm like, this is going to be a 6-win team. This is not working with the staff. And it was the last couple of years just getting a lot of my contacts in the coaching industry saying this. I mean, I had a coach before they played them. I won't say when. I won't give it like it's just
the wheels are turning.
It's not good. This is not offensively. It's not good enough for USC. They're wildly underachieving for their talent. That's all I'll say.
Agreed.
I think that's fair. Like the amount of talent is there.
It's
just
not.
You can't score 3 points against Stanford. That was, to me, I was like, there's no way you have 5-star quarterback and wide receivers and running backs and all, and like 3 points. Utah scored.
By the way,
40.
and here's another thing I'll say. When's the last great offensive lineman they had? Because they're all coming here 5 and 4 stars. When's the last one that got better? Yeah. They're not developing offensive linemen. Just that position alone.
Yeah.
When is Tyron Smith is the last guy that left USC and popped in the NFL? This staff hasn't developed a single offensive lineman. Well, I watch recruiting. I see that Alabama wants them, LSU wants them, Michigan wants them. They come here and they just boom, all of them. Not one. I mean, it's when's the last wide receiver out of high school that came to USC? And again, they're all 4 and 5, and is a first-round pick. Name them. The tight ends. These kids. Everybody's on. When's the last time an offensive left tackle for Alabama didn't, get drafted? Jonah Williams this year. Like you're starting to look at other programs. These left tackles, there's 6 good in high school every year. They all go to the 6 big schools. USC got Austin Jackson. Has he gotten better?
Yeah.
Not really. Like
wide receivers are putting in the NFL. Marquise Lees and Nelson Aguilar and Robert Woods is doing great.
But that was not this staff, was it?
No. Well,
yeah.
True.
Yeah. I mean, when I look at this current staff, I see the recruits come here, and there have been a couple of defensive players, I think.
Yeah.
On the defensive side that
like an Uchenna Nwosu was a 3-star.
Absolutely. Christian Rector. There have been guys that they've coached. But man, on the offensive side, I'm just not seeing it.
Yeah.
It's funny. You got to see Colin when he comes to practice because he's all excited and like walk on. Tailbacks will come up to him and he's like, "I know who you are," and they're like surprised that they. It's
frustrating, but it's listen. I don't think Lynn Swan has ever truly. This is just my opinion. I don't have it sourced. Bought into this staff. I know now. He's not buying into it.
Yeah.
That I know. He may have initially. I never felt he did from what I heard. But you can't tell me he's watching Utah with his history at USC thinking, this is the right group of guys.
Yeah.
And again, you can say it's JT Daniels. In 2018 with USC's talent in a weak Pac-12, 3 points, 10 first downs, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. It'd be one thing if you're losing 48-38. And I'm like, listen, they got one side of the ball. It's offensively, they couldn't move the ball with Sam Darnold. They couldn't move it against, Notre Dame. They couldn't move it against Wazoo. They couldn't move it with Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
And by the way, Sam Darnold and Ronald Jones and 5-star recruits. And it's like, okay, we've got a pattern here.
Yeah.
True. Any other final questions, Ryan?
We probably should.
Did I keep hitting the desk? I
Oh, you
apologize.
did that.
No, you're good.
I have to go pick up my son.
Yeah. So we'll. I
You
think
can't
we'll
leave
probably.
the sun hanging. That would
Yeah, no
be
kidding.
good.
But
Yeah.
appreciate you coming in and everything. You
Can I get some more of that very hip tunnel vision song?
Yeah. See, Colin's like closer to my age than Keely.
I mean, it's really like Coldplay and that song are so cool.
It's cheesy, Colin. It's
Awesome.
Cheesy sells.
It's
Nice.
true. Well,
Hey.
big thanks to Colin for coming on the
Appreciate
show.
it
We
so much,
appreciate
yeah.
you.
Thanks.
Of
What camera
course.
am I looking at?
This
Right
one
here.
right there.
Is that one?
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yes.
everybody.
We'll see you guys on Thursday for another episode of Tunnel Vision. That's Colin. That's Ryan. I'm Keely. We'll see you later.